Okay, this is a model about project finance, and it's about debt funding, and it's in this advanced structuring analysis. Let's see if I can get there. If I can't, oh, there it is. And you recall that no, you don't care. There's kind of all these issues associated with debt sizing, and then this is funding, borrowing all the money during the construction period. Okay, now I've got some other videos here. This is going to be an update, really, of the shareholder loan, but this probably has more comprehensive analysis of funding issues than some of the others. Maybe not. Now, so here's a tiny introduction to this. It's very simple. The idea is to keep the model simple, my idea here, but allow a change in the construction period. Whoops, I don't know what happened there. Why did this happen? Okay, and then to put in some different funding options. Now, I didn't even finish the funding options. This whole idea came about because of the shareholder loan and the interest during construction on the shareholder loan, and whether the shareholder loan interest, if it's paid or if it's capitalized, makes any difference, and whether the capitalization on the interest on a normal non-shareholder loan makes any difference, and how does the construction period versus, we'll show you kind of how to S-curve shape, let me just say it like that, how does that affect things? Now, if you press this little thing called go to the analysis, it brings you down to a range name. That's just a silly little hyperlink, okay? Now, I graphed the sources and uses of funds here. So this gray thing includes all the capital expenditures, which is the blue line, and the next one, which is the senior interest, and then shareholder loan interest. Okay, that's the total uses of funds, and then the bars here are the equity and the shareholder loan and all that. And I allowed you to put a different level of a shareholder loan, and there are no taxes in this model either, which taxes I always thought was the reason you made a shareholder loan, if you could get away with it. Now, to summarize things really during the construction period, if, by the way, this middle period, if you push it backwards, it's like pushing a normal curve backwards and cutting off the side of it, kind of. You push it forwards, and here, if you're looking, the IRR should be going up as you have the same expenditures and putting it forward. I think the total cost of the project should be going down as well. Okay, and then if you would make the construction period shorter, it actually would cut off some of the things here, just a second. And then if you make it really long, it kind of leaves the construction expenditures there, and you just have to sit and wait until you get paid. Okay, so that's kind of how all that construction work does, and I think I saw the IRR was 9, and you can see all the effects of the shape of the S-curve, bigger effect than I really thought it had. Okay, and then really, whenever you're going to have something with the evaluating the funding, you better look at the funding itself. Now, on the details, maybe I should have presented it like this. I show, and I think in terms of the mechanics of working through this is important. Now, there's a subsequent video that goes through all the mechanics, but this shows how much interest is paid, how much interest is capitalized, how much shareholder interest is paid and capitalized. Now, whether it's paid or... Okay, I had to... An interruption. I hope this... I'm clear. So I put the interest capitalized and interest paid separately. And then we work through the sources and uses. And I want you to realize that interest allocated, interest during construction is an accounting allocation of interest that could be paid or could be capitalized. That's one of the funding issues. And the other funding issue is that the whole thing doesn't make really any difference. And don't get all excited about it and think you're doing something innovative. I've heard people, oh, I'm capitalizing interest, as if that's something fancy. If you don't capitalize interest, you just capitalize it anyway, because you pay the interest to the bank and re-borrow the money. And at the end of the day, you have the same kind of debt to capital structure anyway, which is what I'm going to show you. So, why don't we look at a couple of the financing issues? I think the first thing I'll do is put the shareholder loan off. Let's, come on, it's going slowly, not because it's going slowly. It's going slowly because the way I'm recording this video is something, I think. Okay. So I have a equity IRR of 8%. I know people want a higher equity IRR and all that. Okay. And of course, let's make it a little bit better. Let's push the middle of the construction period a little further out. And then the standard deviation really shouldn't make much difference because that's on either side of it. But if we push it further out, we're getting a little bit higher IRR, I guess. Okay? Although the graph is not quite as nice. All right, and let's push the construction period back here. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, now we get a little bit higher project IRR, and I can't see the graph as well, but so what? Okay, I'll push it a little back. I'm wasting time now, but whatever. Okay, and now let's just look at a couple of things. So we don't have any shareholder loan. I put it off. And now we have this IDC and the total interest. And if I capitalize the interest, it's 9.58. If I don't capitalize the interest, I guess it made a little bit more of a difference than I thought. When I capitalize the interest, I get a little bit higher IDC. Excuse me. When I don't capitalize the interest, I get a little bit higher IDC, and that high IDC makes the project cost go up, I guess. And is that what's happening? And we get a little bit different of an IRR. It does make a little bit of a difference, so I was wrong. If we just fix the debt input, that just fixes 834. Let's make it a little bit of a more round number so you really understand it's fixed. And that's as if the DSCR on the prospective cash flow was causing it. And then it makes a little bit of a difference, I guess. I was wrong, I think. Okay, and in this case, it is, if we capitalize the interest, we get a little bit lower of return than if we pay the interest. And that's the same as if the debt to capital is driven by it's a little bit better not to capitalize the interest. So let's not capitalize it, okay? Now, again, now we're not fixing the debt, it's driven by the debt to capital structure, okay? And let's see what happens now if I put a shareholder loan in. notice that the equity IRR is going up. And the reason the equity IRR is going up, we kind of put the same equity in, and I should talk about the shareholder loan just a minute. I will in a minute. Because the shareholder loan, you'd think, doesn't really affect anything. Just an allocation of the equity. But this whole business of calling it the IDC on the shareholder loan something, part of the project cost, it's like putting an equity cost into your capitalization of the interest. Now, so let's keep going up. Okay, so right now I didn't capitalize the interest. Let's capitalize the interest on the shareholder loan. It doesn't make much of a difference, but a tiny bit. It helps this time to capitalize the interest. Now I made the shareholder loan 100%. And if let's put the interest rate up. So if we go all the way down on the shareholder loan, sorry this is taking so long. It's 9.89, and if we go up all the way up to 90%, it goes up by 0.5%. It's not that big a deal, is it? Here. Now let's say I have a higher project IRR, and let's put a little bit of a higher gearing, a higher debt amount in. Oops, I'm starting to be up too high. And that, oof, wow. If we have the shareholder loan and we capitalize the interest, we get 20.26. Let's leave it capitalized. I wasted a whole lot of time on this capitalized with interest, but sometimes it's good to go through it. So it goes from 1991 to what was that? It didn't make, it went from what was it again? 1991, it didn't make that much of a difference, but it did certainly improve the IRR, okay? And that's because we're putting some cost in here. And when I was doing this, I guess if I have a higher interest rate, let's see, we can then, should get even higher of a debt. And of course it's driven by the difference in the debt cost and the equity cost. It's just like any other gearing issue. I go 2031 this time, and if I don't have the shareholder loan, come on. Oops. 1991, there, I'm back. Okay, that's it. Now, I think that's enough, really. You're sick of watching me press some kind of buttons, okay? This time when I capitalize the interest, it goes down. I wish I knew exactly how to explain that. I can't explain that, okay? But I'm pretty confident in the model, not completely. Now, if we just fix the amount of debt, this effect of the shareholder loan is completely gone. Because the IDC, the debt is independent of the interest during construction. So on all these issues, they're totally different. The funding issues as well, whether the debt is driven by the DSCR or the debt is driven by the debt to capital ratio. And that, I'm about finished. Okay, so if there we have about 74% debt. Let's put it up. Let's put the debt up. Oops, I'm going down, of course. Let's put the debt up to about our 90%. Okay, it's going to take me a while. Sorry about this. Okay, I should almost turn the video off. and my hand's getting hurting. My hand's like what you call it? It's like falling asleep from these stupid little spinner boxes. I've got to stop it. Okay, enough. I don't think 80%. So if it's 80% and we have an input 80%, about 80%, then the shareholder loan doesn't make any difference. I'm going to put this down to 80%, and I'm using my other hand, okay? And then, now, I put a shareholder loan in, and I can get it up to 14%. So it's a little bit, okay? Enough. If I don't capitalize it, it goes down, so the capitalization helped, and this one had virtually no effect. And finally, why don't we put the construction forward, so you can kind of see that actually the timing of the S curve and all that made a bigger difference. If you can negotiate, when you pay your suppliers, that's actually a bigger deal. All right, and that's the funding. That's the funding in the shareholder loan. I think it's an interesting little thing. It's kind of, you have to add all of these things up before you get somewhere sometimes. So I'm